The thought of deliberately destroying a $2 million supercar is enough to make any motor enthusiast run crying to their mama. But in the name of safety, these crash tests are paramount. And if saving human lives comes at the cost of a few wasted Lamborghinis and shredded Bugattis, then so be it. Manufacturers all over the world of cars, planes, trains, and even tanks put their products through grueling tests to ensure that they're ready to head out onto the road or the battlefield. Using a combination of simulation software, actual sledgehammers, and of course the full-speed driving into a wall test, millions of dollars are thrown down the drain every single year. Supercar fans, look away now. What you see before you is the $2.2 million limited production Koenigsegg Regera, and it's being capitulated straight into a wall. With a scintillating top speed of 255 miles an hour or 410 kilometers per hour, this lightning-quick piece of automotive art is one of the fastest vehicles on the planet. Those numbers could have increased even further if it weren't electronically limited by the computer system. But it doesn't matter if you're the fastest car in history. If you're not proven to be safe for drivers and passengers, nobody in their right mind will fork out that much money. Mass production companies like Chevrolet, Ford, Mercedes, and the like have no qualms throwing away 10 or 20 of their base model prototypes for $20,000 or so each. But for supercars like the Regera, which cost millions, this isn't a viable option. Only 80 of these stunning cars were produced, so the idea of destroying 10 of them in the name of research was unfathomable. That's why Koenigsegg takes a different approach. They crash test the same car over and over and over again, rebuilding it between each test. Why? Because in the words of Christian von Koenigsegg himself, quote, "It's cheaper." When behind the wheel, cars and drivers deal with an array of ever-changing risks. Pedestrians, cyclists, distracted drivers. Heck, even lines of ducklings can find themselves causing trouble on the road. But at least these cars are firmly planted on the road. For commercial aircraft, there's another entire level of danger, and its name is gravity. Modern airlines are forced to undertake all kinds of tests, ranging from the earliest stages of design to the final flight simulations, all to make sure they're as safe as possible. After all, if anything goes wrong up in the sky, airlines and insurance companies could be responsible for billions of dollars in compensation payouts, far more than the build cost of one jet aircraft. A Boeing 777, for example, costs over $440 million per unit to build, so they'd want to make sure they're doing it right, minimizing risk of mechanical failure while obviously prioritizing safety. That's why manufacturers bend the plane's wings until they reach breaking point. Amazingly, tests have proven that wings are capable of almost 90-degree movement, so next time you see the wings flapping and bending through your little cabin window, don't fret. The list of tests is exhaustive and even includes simulating bird strikes. When birds are sucked into engines, it might not bring down the plane, but it can cause expensive damage. Year after year, bird strikes cost commercial aircraft some $1.2 billion in repairs, according to BBC. Let's spare a thought for those unlucky birds, though. Whether you prefer the convertible or the coupe, there's no way any proud Lamborghini owner would volunteer to see their beloved Murcielago propelled into a brick wall and shattered into 1,000 pieces, especially when you consider that the current inventory prices for these bad boys can reach up to $540,000. The majority of official crash tests, whether a $500,000 Lamborghini supercar or a $25,000 Toyota Prius, are performed in a designated and controlled space with the vehicles hurled toward an object at speeds of 35 miles per hour. We know what you're thinking. 35 miles per hour? That's not that fast. Well, it sure as heck is fast enough to obliterate this car. See for yourself. How does it all work? Typically, an electric motor tows the vehicle toward the point of impact. As it follows a straight line, there's no room for deviation, meaning that the same test is applied every time, regardless of the make or model. That's how safety ratings are determined. The question is routinely asked, how did each vehicle fare compared to others in exactly the same crash situation? Make no mistake about it, testing facilities like NCAP put their cars through the ringer. Just have a peek at how this BMW Z4 gets tossed around like a sack of potatoes. Crash simulation facilities operate tests that measure impact from front-on crashes, side-on stationary crashes, side-on high-speed movement crashes, and rollovers, as well as whiplash simulations. By using props, they can even analyze the collision's impact on hypothetical pedestrians. As cars like the Z4, which have a base price of $50,000, become more advanced, the money you spend results in far more impressive safety features. Radar technology, artificial intelligence, and the ability to upgrade onboard software systems allow for cars like this one to think for themselves. If for whatever reason the driver loses focus behind the wheel, the Z4 has been proven to be able to immediately stop when it perceives a sudden collision risk. Similarly, thanks to its lane support system, it doesn't drift in and out of lanes should you doze off. Of course, drivers should never rely on this technology. For all this attempted destruction, the BMW Z4 got a 5-star safety rating based on its Euro NCAP crash tests. Blasting a fragile car into a wall, a car which is designed to crumble, is one thing. Taking a military-grade tank and attempting to rip it apart, well, that's another challenge entirely. For over 100 years, armies around the world have been attempting to outdo each other, trying to create the most bomb-proof, rocket-proof, and fastest-moving tanks possible. And they've spent billions in the process. Way back in 1976, the US military chose Chrysler to develop and build its new main battle tank, part of a weapons program that was expected to cost $4.9 billion over the span of a decade. This is just one of the vehicle R&D programs implemented over the last century. Any guesses what that money goes towards? Parts for one, but also a significant amount of tests, those which ensure that these impenetrable machines are ready for the heat of battle. Following these extensive experiments, armies finally arrive at a unit cost. The M1 Abrams tank, which first came out in the early 70s, accompanied a price tag of a whopping $8.92 million when adjusted for inflation. Damn! Just as we saw with the Z4, technology is playing a greater role than ever, and manufacturers are taking advantage. A recent project at the University of Michigan Ann Arbor, called the Seated Soldier Study, looks past the vehicles themselves and uses software to focus on the people within those vehicles instead. By taking 3D laser scans of real soldiers, these programs can model what would happen to these people when weighed down with heavy body armor and weapons if their vehicle were to get into trouble. Pretty nifty, isn't it? With upwards of 1,000 times more weight than that of a car, a loaded train, be it freight or passenger, can cause millions of dollars worth of damage should things go south. Over in the UK, Vivarail is hoping to recycle their former London Underground D78 cars for new train carriages on the National Rail Network. This meant undergoing a number of trials, including speeding the train up and smashing it head first into a 3-ton water tank. Take a look, here's how it played out. While the damage was minimal, proving that the conductor would have escaped mostly unharmed. Should the impact have derailed the train, the expenses would have skyrocketed. Generally, it costs about $15 million per 6-carriage train and $1 to $2 million per mile of track. The thought of crashing an unmanned suburban train at a lowly 15 miles per hour doesn't exactly terrorize motor enthusiasts. This will, though. Let's have a moment of silence for this $1.3 million Bugatti Veyron supercar about to smack into an immovable concrete wall. As much as it pains us to see a vehicle of this caliber destroyed, it's essential in the name of safety. The Bugatti maintenance costs alone exceed that of buying a new Prius every single year, so its makers don't want to be smashing them up unnecessarily. That's why they rely on software-based test crash simulators. While it's considerably cheaper than performing real-life rollovers, speed hump tests, side, front, and rear impact crashes, every batch of virtual tests can still end up costing thousands of dollars. Planes, trains, cars, and tanks all need to go through extensive, safety-focused crash tests. That's just expected. While it might come across as a surprise, a variety of everyday mechanics undergo destruction tests of their own, namely the common elevator. As a means of human transport, safety must be the priority of any manufacturer. Hence why companies regularly conduct what's known as a drop test. And yep, it's exactly what you're imagining. The elevator is jam-packed with dead weight and dropped from a number of different heights, free-falling to the ground. McDonough Elevators recommends that a full-load drop test be performed annually, keeping in mind that high-rise traction elevators in skyscrapers can reach up to $250,000 each. You'd want those drop tests to run as smoothly as possible. $19,805,000. A heck of a lot of money, wouldn't you say? Well, that's how much this U.S. street-legal McLaren F1 sold for at auction at Sotheby's 2019 Monterey Car Week. Almost 10 times that of the Bugatti we saw earlier. Ka-ching! since only 106 F1s were initially produced. Not only is it expensive, but it's extremely rare. Smash the pedal to the metal and this beast roars to top speeds of 234 miles per hour, bringing with it all kinds of danger. Obviously, it needs to be as safe as possible. Unfortunately for McLaren, plowing this gem of a car into a wall comes at a mighty high cost. On average, supercar prototypes cost around $250,000. For McLaren, that number climbs even higher, especially when you realize that the average amount of crash tests per model is 6. That's 6 prototypes out the window just for the sake of destruction. Money-loaded celebrities tend to shell out for the sleek, low-riding hypercars. But if Dubai's multi-billionaire sheik is anyone to go by, then the Mercedes G-Wagon is just as much a symbol of luxury. The entry-level G-Class 550 has a base price of $127,650, which only climbs when all the gizmos, gadgets, and 24-karat gold is added. Since frontal, side, and rollover incidents account for the majority of crashes on America's roadways, it was imperative that Mercedes tested these scenarios repeatedly with dummies strapped into every seat. Driver safety is crucial, but equally so is passenger safety. Even though these tests set Mercedes back millions, the money proved to be well spent because the 2019 G-Wagon was awarded a 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating. Would you buy a car if it didn't have a 5-star rating? Would you settle for 4? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.